The Impractical Jokers followed 4 lifelong friends who competed to embarrass each other, often playing the most humiliating pranks. For a few years around 2011 to 2017, you were really unable to turn on your TV and not be bombarded by these 4. The moments they made for TV are regarded as some of the funniest unscripted content on television. Naturally, as they tried to one-up each other with the pranks got more and more dangerous and mentally taxing. Something we equally saw echoed throughout YouTube with the prank channels that used to plague the site. Starting off as harmless jokes and transforming into something that would make you legitimately hate your best friends. Let me introduce you to one of the Impractical Jokers who often suffers the worst punishments on the show. James Murray, aka Murr, aka Ferret due to his uncanny resemblance to the animal of the same name. In one of the pranks, Murr is crowned tonight's big loser, which comes with a punishment as a result of you not going through with the crazy things the other Joker tells you to do.
Come on guys, what are you planning?
Murr would come to find out that he made the worst mistake of his life being the biggest loser that day, as he'd have to skydive out of a plane 5,000 feet in the air. This is undoubtedly the most insane punishment on the show, as Murr is deathly afraid of heights and is frequently quoted with saying that he would never skydive.
Maybe we're not, Murr.
Maybe it's your punishment.
No, it is not. There's no Murray, I drove you here. Where are you going?
If all of what was previously mentioned wasn't bad enough, he is unknowingly given a permanent reminder of this horrible day in the form of a tattoo.
Are you going to tell us what tattoos we're getting first? Yes, after you get them. This is your first tattoo ever. Here we go, Murr. 1, 2, 3.
With friends like these, who needs enemies? Most of the biggest empires, such as Apple, Disney, and Amazon, started with just a couple of friends and a dream. Some businesses sell electronics, others sell products from A to Z. However, I'll be focusing on businesses that sell you on the friendship of those involved. We will come to find out that mixing business and friendship can often be just as bad as mixing water and oil. Viruses have what is known as symbiotic relationships, and there are 3 types of these relationships that they could have with their hosts. For the purpose of this video, we will be viewing the virus as the businesses and the people who are involved in them as the hosts. The first type of relationship is known as mutualism, which is where both the virus and the host mutually benefit from the virus's infection in some way. The second is commensalism, where the virus benefits and the host is neither negatively nor positively impacted. The last, and the one I'm sure you're most familiar with, is parasitism, where the virus is positively impacted and the host is negatively impacted and left to inevitably shrivel up and die. How long have you known your closest loved ones? The average teenage romance lasts for about 1 year. The average marriage length in the United States is around 20. However, for the sake of this video, we will be focusing on one type of bond, the friendship. In the early days of man, friendship and cooperation were directly linked to survival. You alone can't possibly get all the clay needed to make a brick house to survive the winter. However, with the power of friendship, you are almost guaranteed that brick house, and then some, and most likely half the time. Despite this, friendship is still stated to be the shortest lasting relationship out of the previously mentioned in modern times. According to the sites Being Guru, Live About, and many other sources, the average friendship will last for less than a decade, which is shorter than the lifespan of a hair. Oftentimes, friendship only lasts 7 years before replacing the old with the new. Few bonds outlast the 7-year mark, and despite this, these 4 jokers from Staten Island have stayed through the worst hells you can imagine. In 1999, the Impractical Jokers originally met in their all-boys high school. However, it was certainly not through ordinary means. The Jokers needed a way to find romance in their all-boys high school, and the dudes there just weren't gonna cut it. The solution to this problem was to enter an improvisational class, which is the only place that would allow for girls to participate. However, as they got more settled into the class, they came to discover that rather than meeting girls, they genuinely loved making people laugh with their witty humor and spontaneous lines, both of which we would certainly see leak over into their careers down the line. The 4 jokers would begin to develop a bond, but not one strong enough to last beyond high school. And once college came, it seemed that their friendship would perfectly fit into the average friendship duration of less than a decade. They all parted ways, going to different colleges. Eventually, high school seemed like a distant memory for each of them, and they never spoke to or saw one another again. Until on what would have been a rather ordinary day for Mur, that he would come to realize would transform his life into something no one could ever predict. While going to work, Mur took a ferry, and as fate would have it, on that same exact ferry would be his old friend Sal. They eventually caught up with each other and started reminiscing about the good old days. And from that exchange, they kept in contact and eventually got back together with their old friend, Joe Gatto. The group decided to make a comedy group called the Tenderloins, and they certainly came from humble beginnings, rehearsing a lot of the routines in Joe's mother's basement. Some information that I purposely withheld was that Q was not in the original group. As a matter of fact, if it weren't for the original Tenderloin, Mike Bacchio, or however you say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, leaving due to both a successful marriage and job, Q most likely would have never been in the Tenderloins.
And I do credit you for a lot of the success that we've had, because the 3 of us, at the end of the day, I think have a very similar kind of silly, slapsticky kind of sense of humor. And when Q came on board full-time, he brought an edge to us and our comedy that we didn't have before.
Impractical Jokers' unique show structure and the seemingly worldwide desire for prank content at the time allowed the series to absolutely explode in popularity, with the show's 2011 pilot garnering a whopping 2 million viewers. True TV had a new cash cow on their hands. As recently as this year, Staten Island has given the show its own dedicated day on the first Monday of every February. There are hundreds of audience reviews and YouTube comments that say they've used the show to get through rough times, with many calling it an antidepressant, with the critic Linda Stacy calling it possibly the funniest and most ridiculous show she's seen in years. Needless to say, the show was a smash hit among critics and fans alike. The show's success even convinced True TV to make 3 spin-off shows, including The Carbonara Effect, which I've come to realize is just Impractical Jokers with magic. Speaking of The Carbonara Effect, the Impractical Jokers even guest starred in one of the show's most interesting episodes.
Just only, okay? And then there you go. Now it's roasted. And...
Wait, what?
We live our lives riddled with anxiety. It's like, you know, you can never really get comfortable because everything you say is used against you.
Like, he said to me backstage, he goes, "Oh, no, you're sitting behind me."
As you can imagine, making a living off constantly pranking your friends could easily make anyone paranoid. Using what they say against them will cause a layer of anxiety and caution every time you interact with your friends. To name a few of the punishments they played on each other, we have making your friend get a Jaden Smith tattoo, asking for toilet paper in front of a packed restaurant,
I ran out of toilet paper.
stripping butt naked in the middle of New York, and literally marrying your best friend's sister.
Who you are, and who you are is Sal's sister. What an amazing moment.
This is true dedication to the craft of entertainment if I've ever seen. Or is it? There's actually a story not too different from the Impractical Jokers that lies right here on this very platform. Two kids named Ian Hecox and Anthony Padilla would meet in their 6th grade science class and become nearly inseparable. At 17 years old, they began creating fun home videos and posting them on YouTube for them and their friends to laugh at. These videos were never even meant to be seen by anyone other than those close friends. However, with some convincing from those very friends, Smosh, as we know it today, was born. Many of the first milestones of YouTube belong to them. Smosh would grow into arguably one of the most influential YouTube channels on the platform. If I had to speak personally about them, I would talk about their earlier videos helping form my 7-year-old humor. Smosh fan mail opening videos will always have a special place in my heart, as the homemade feel of the videos is part of what inspired me to make those awful vlogs all those years ago. They were really the first successful internet celebrities to stem from YouTube. However, as they'd come to find out, being the first to do anything comes with many dangers. You are quite literally the first to do it and are on your own. But rather than deciding to stay alone, they were provided an opportunity that they would soon come to strongly regret ever taking. Defiant Media originally seemed promising, providing many of the much needed funds for the group's sketch comedy. However, as time went on, they realized that their parent company was less comparable to a strong business opportunity and more so to a boa constrictor, oftentimes restricting the creative oxygen that allowed the Smosh brand to feel so unique and homemade. With the now restricted and corporate-friendly content Ian and Anthony were being forced to make, they often found themselves rehashing the same jokes that they made when they were 17 while being in their late 20s. This turned what was supposed to be a fun process into an increasingly dull and repetitive chore. The strain that Defiant Media caused on their relationship was so strong that even after-work interactions between the two felt incredibly awkward. The mixture of the boa constrictor that is Defiant Media and his dwindling friendship with Ian ultimately led Anthony Padilla to leave Smosh behind to work on creating his own identity in the form of his I Spent a Day With videos and his Anthony Padilla channel. With Ian wanting to keep the Smosh boat floating and Anthony working on his own business endeavors, the future of Smosh seemed more uncertain than ever. Smosh's numbers started to plateau, and Defiant Media eventually left Smosh to shrivel up and die. Fortunately for Smosh, Rhett and Link, which were a channel that had grown alongside Smosh throughout YouTube history, acquired Smosh with their very own business, Mythical Entertainment. Rhett and Link are the epitome of strong business friends. From 1984, when they met each other in 1st grade due to writing bad words on the school desk, to now, they have remained best friends with one another. I associated them with commensalism because from what I've seen on screen, their bond could genuinely get no stronger than it already is. That's not to say their friendship hasn't had its fair share of hardships, as a recent interview with Anthony Padilla shows. Even at one point, Link saying that he could have made the same decision as Anthony to leave what was so familiar to him. This particular statement really helped me to realize how similar Rhett and Link's story is to Smosh's. Not only with them starting their channels at generally the same time and being YouTube veterans, but at the core being a powerful duo. Watching Anthony interview Rhett and Link felt like one big therapy session, and I guess that's the point. A very nice moment in the interview involves Anthony thanking Rhett and Link for all they have done to help Smosh stay alive, especially in an era where most YouTubers they grew up with on the platform had either quit or stopped creating YouTube content for whatever reason. That's why I find it so fitting that Rhett and Link would help Smosh to get back on their feet. Rhett and Link had a big part in helping Ian and Anthony get Smosh back, but I'm sure they had an even bigger part in helping them put their bond before their business. Otherwise, both fall apart. All friendships have hardships, and that's especially evident through Rhett and Link. However, through talking about issues before they ever get a chance to escalate, they have been able to remain good friends for a very long time. They've eaten scorpions together, run Good Mythical Mornings since 2011, created hundreds of episodes together, and maintained an almost 4-decade-long relationship together, ensuring that their friendship is at the top of their priority list, even above their business. On New Year's Eve 2021, Joe Gatto announced his departure from the Impractical Jokers. My predictions as to why Joe left the show when I first heard the news of his absence were they finally went too far with the pranks, or he and another one of the Jokers had a falling out, and Joe just didn't want to be around for that anymore. It's not unrealistic to think this way. We've seen good friends break that bond and even become enemies. We've seen it with Smosh, we've seen it with Drake and Josh, and we've seen it in our own personal lives. For a moment, I really thought that these 4 lifelong friends cut out Joe Gatto. This was as far as I would have come to finding an answer if I hadn't dug a little deeper. The reason Joe left the Impractical Jokers had absolutely nothing to do with the Impractical Jokers. Through everything that they had put each other through, the punishments, the pranks, the embarrassing lines, their friendship had persevered. To this day, Joe Gatto is still friends with all of the Impractical Jokers.
To a person here tonight without whom Impractical Jokers would not be possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a hand for Mr.
On June 20th, 2023, Ian and Anthony announced their return to Smosh. They had bought Smosh back from Rhett and Link and were now running it themselves once again. They had finally done it. Smosh were once again together as a duo, creating YouTube videos for the first time in nearly 7 years of being apart. As of today, they have made content that they genuinely seem to be happy to make. They don't even care if the videos do badly because they know they're gonna have a good time making them, just like they did when they were 17, starting up their channels for the first time and doing the videos purely for fun. Hopefully, just as we've seen Anthony not only return to Smosh, but return and love it more than he ever has, we could see something similar with Joe Gatto. The Impractical Jokers have proven through their later seasons that Joe's absence, much like that of Anthony's, is noticed, but not a complete show killer, or at least not yet. Smosh and the Impractical Jokers can technically run without Anthony and Joe, but their absence obviously leaves much to be desired. As much as I wish to see Joe back on the show, I understand how issues in your personal life can hinder your enjoyment of working on the show. But come on, how could I have not wanted them back? How can you have Smosh without Anthony's iconic faces and mannerisms, outlandish ideas, and those genuine moments where you could feel the friendship of Ian and Anthony through the screen? How can you have the Impractical Jokers without Joe's memorable bits and lines, his often carefree attitude to the most humiliating pranks, and once again, genuine moments where you could feel the friendship of the Jokers through the screen? The average teenage romance lasts for about 1 year. The average marriage length in the United States is around 20, but for the Impractical Jokers, Smosh, Rhett, and Link, they have a special sort of bond that I don't think will be going away anytime soon. Thank you very much for watching. Much peace and love towards your grandmother, and have a great day.